Hello, and welcome back to the Crime Reel. For today's true crime narration, we shall be looking at the story of Harry Howell, whose life came to a brutal end during bonfire weekend in 1988. Harry was born in 1914. He spent much of his life working as a mechanic at British Leyland, the large UK car company responsible for the production of British classics such as the Mini, Jaguar and Land Rover between the 1960s and 1980s. In 1988, Harry was 74 and living with his long-term partner, Elsie Flegg. It is believed that the couple did not have any children and had never married, but Harry sometimes referred to himself using the surname Flegg. The couple lived in sheltered housing in Ibison Court, Blackpool. This small housing estate was for older people to enable them to live independently in their own home, but with the security of having a warden living nearby to provide help and support as needed. In the October of 1988, Elsie sadly passed away. Harry remained living in the sheltered housing, maintaining his independence. He was not in the best of health, having previously suffered a stroke which had left him partially paralysed and blind in one eye. He was also quite hard of hearing. The warden at the accommodation would check in on the residents in person 6 days per week and via an intercom every Sunday. At Elsie's funeral, Harry's nephew expressed concern over how Harry would cope with life by himself. The pair went for a bite to eat at the cafe just around the corner from Harry's home. Here, Harry's nephew spoke to the waitress and asked her to keep an eye out for Harry, as he would be coming in for daily meals from that point onwards. Harry fell into a new routine. Within the sheltered housing, he tended to keep to himself, but was often quite chatty with strangers when he was out and about. He ate at the cafe every day and enjoyed going for a pint in his local pub, The George, on Central Drive. He would also regularly visit the local betting shop to have a gamble on the horses. On Saturday, 5th of November 1988, the warden visited Harry early in the morning and had left Harry's house by around 9:30 a.m. Harry then walked to the cafe for a cooked breakfast. Whilst eating, he was joined by a well-dressed man who ordered a cup of tea. Harry was well known to the staff, but they had never seen this other man dressed in a fawn overcoat and soft trilby hat. Later that afternoon, Harry spent around 20 minutes chatting with a young couple with 2 children. During this chat, he told them that he had no financial worries as he had plenty of money hidden away. This was not uncommon for Harry, who would often tell people of his financial security. Sunday morning started as normal. The milkman made his delivery and the warden checked in with Harry via the intercom for a brief chat. When the warden went about their visits the following day, they noticed a white card left on the window of Harry's front door. This was a system which the sheltered housing used for the residents to indicate that they were popping out for a while, so that there was no cause for alarm when they did not answer their front door. The following morning, Tuesday the 8th of November, at around 7:30 a.m, the milkman noticed that this white card was still present. Around an hour later, Harry was due a visit from the home help who would regularly visit to assist him. As she approached the front door, she noticed that there was a note attached. The note said, "On holiday for 2 weeks, no milk please." The white card that the milkman had seen about an hour before had been replaced with this note. Around 9 a.m. that morning, the warden also saw this note. Later that day, a window cleaner by the name of John Johnston visited the estate. He saw a man knocking at Harry's door, then walking away when he did not get an answer. When John looked at the door, the note was gone. It is unclear whether this man, who was aged about 40 and stood approximately 5'7" tall, removed it. 2 days later, on Thursday the 10th of November, the milkman arrived and noticed that Tuesday's milk was still on Harry's doorstep. Assuming that Harry had gone away, but not confirming this, he removed the spoiled milk. Another 12 days passed, and John, the window cleaner, returned. At this point, he spotted some new damage to Harry's front door. He pushed on the door and found that it was still securely locked. However, John was concerned and decided to go round the back of Harry's house to see if everything was okay. As he used his ladder to look in through the window, John saw Harry slumped in his chair. The emergency services were called and found that Harry was covered in blood. He had been beaten around the head with a blunt object and had been dead for some time. A search of Harry's house revealed that his wallet, keys and gold watch, engraved with the words "To Harry Flegg" on his retirement, had been stolen. Harry was known to freely discuss his mistrust of banks and building societies and how he kept his life savings at home. Despite assuming that the reason for the attack was burglary, when the police searched the house, they found £1,100 on Harry's body and £2,000 hidden in the house. This would be the equivalent of about £4,000 now, which is approximately $5,200. The police believed that the killer had pinned a note about going on holiday onto Harry's front door in order to avoid Harry being discovered for as long as possible. They attempted to trace the person that the window cleaner had seen knocking on Harry's door that day, as he possibly could have been the one who removed the note, but this was without success. The search of Harry's house also revealed a further lead. 2 uneaten beef and horseradish sandwiches remained in a bag which showed that they had been purchased in Burton's Bakery on Central Avenue. When the police interviewed the staff at the bakery, it was established that only 2 such sandwiches had been sold on the 5th of November. The bakery staff were able to give a description of the man who bought them. He was said to be tall, slim, with a pale complexion and dark hair which fell over his forehead. It is unknown if this was the same tall man who had been seen eating breakfast with Harry that morning. Harry would buy a pie in this baker's shop every lunchtime, and the man who bought the sandwiches explained that he was buying them for the old man who came in each day. An artist's impression was drawn of this man on the 7th of December 1988 and was widely circulated. The following month, on the 12th of January 1989, Harry's case was featured on the BBC television show Crimewatch. This was a popular TV show which showed reconstructions of major unsolved crimes in order to gain assistance from the general public in solving the case. The police received over 100 additional leads as a result of the programme. Then, on the 21st of January 1989, it appeared that police had got a more promising break in the case. They were contacted by a jeweller in Accrington, which is about 40 miles away from Blackpool. The jeweller provided them with details of 3 men who were trying to sell a watch which matched the description of the one stolen from Harry. Unfortunately, this once again led nowhere. In February, a fresh appeal was made in a follow-up episode of Crimewatch. Up to 80 police officers were involved in the case. Over 6,000 people were interviewed and 2,000 statements taken. Despite this huge effort, the killer has never been identified and the case remains unsolved to this day. However, comparisons have been drawn between Harry's murder and that of 88-year-old Jack Shuttleworth. Jack was a former bus driver who was beaten to death in his shed in Ingleton on the 3rd of August 1989. A man was subsequently arrested for this murder. 51-year-old Brian Newcombe had fled to Scotland after the murder, where he then killed a lady by the name of Margaret McConey. On 30th of August 1989, he was arrested and charged with both murders, and it is understood that he confessed to both crimes to his then fiancée. Before he could be questioned about Harry's death or face trial for Jack and Margaret's murders, Brian took his own life in his cell at Armley Jail in Leeds. Whether Brian was responsible for Harry's death or Harry's killer still walks among us remains unknown. That concludes today's story about Harry Howell. And now it's time for petty crime. First up, Deborah Shaw has sent in the two faces of George. George's first face is a sweet potato who steals people's hearts. The second is a scrappy fighter with more confidence than a heavyweight boxing champion. His current rap sheet shows he loves attacking egrets, spoonbills, wood stalks, plumbers, plastic bags, traffic cones, anyone with a mask, men with mowers, and huge dogs. There's a great list there, Debbie. Thank you. Charles Harris from Melbourne, Australia, has sent in his two cats that were rescued from the roadside in central Thailand. They are now looked after by relatives of Charles and his wife in Lopburi province. They have to be housed at night as there are snakes about. First is Cafe, spelled Kafei, and then there's Tansai, spelled Tansai. Charles has also let me know about some rumblings going down in Australia at a place in Victoria called Bass, or might be Base. It's spelled Bass. There's the Black Swan AGM being held. Charles says there's a local hood in Pakenham, Victoria, with new members being shown around. This is so cool, getting pictures from all around the world. Thanks for sharing these photos with us, Charles. Thanks very much for listening to the Crime Reel. Stay safe. Goodbye. Psst. As today's story is a bonfire night one, did you know that until 1959 in Britain it was illegal to not celebrate bonfire night? Well, who knew that? I didn't. Goodbye.